So now we're looking at page 18 of the fractions handout, part 2. And I'd like to remind you, we've been talking about it briefly, but I'd like to remind you a little bit more about the fact family triangles. So for example, if we have a fact family triangle with whole numbers, with multiplication and division, we might have a statement that 3 times 4 equals 12 from that particular fact family. The two factors are 3 and 4, and the product is 12. Or the other multiplication statement might be 4 times 3 equals 12. Well, the division statements associated with this are 12 divided by 4 equals 3, and 12 divided by 3 equals 4. So we're taking the product and dividing it by one of the factors. So to summarize, in terms of factors and product, so we have factor 1 times factor 2 equals product, or factor 2 times factor 1 equals product, or in a division statement, we would take product divided by one of the factors gives you the other factor. Okay, so the division statements are product divided by one of the factors. So then, if we're going to try to do subtraction, or division with fractions, we need to identify what other ways we can rewrite this, this division as. So, for example, if we have 3/4 divided by 2/7 equals question mark, that's a division statement. That's one of the division statements, which means that 3/4 is our product and 2/7 is one of our factors. And we have a multiplication division statement. Now, it's also possible to rewrite this as 3/4 divided by something equals 2/7. Okay. Or we can rewrite this as 2/7 times question mark equals 3/4, or question mark times 3/4, times 2/7 equals 3/4. 3/4 is our product. So you notice that these statements are actually multiplication statements. And we're going to be looking at missing factor. This is where we can look at, so a form that's a missing factor, 2/7 times what equals 3/4. So if we look at this missing factor, we have 2/7 of a group, right? 2/7 of a group of how many in each group? How many in each group equals 3/4 in total? Well, there are a number of ways that we can look at this. One is to say, well, if we have 2/7 of each group, then if our group size was 7/2, then how many would we have? Right? If our group size was 7/2, then how many would we have? If it was 2/7 times 7/2, right? Do you see that we would have 1? So this is how many we need in each group to make 1. But we don't have one of those. We don't want one of those. We want 3/4. So we could take that 1 and multiply by 3/4. Do you see? So we're doing it kind of in steps. We're seeing 2/7 times 7/2. So 2/7 of a group of 7/2 would give us 1. But what we really want eventually is 3/4, not 1. So we'll multiply 1 by 3/4. We'll take 3/4 of that. So notice that our question mark, which was this orange part that we were talking about, is actually 7/2 times 3/4. So what we actually have is we rewrote 3/4 divided by 2/7 as 7/2 times 3/4. And then we know how to multiply those. We can go to our area model or anything else. Each our 1 unit square is going to be divided into 8 parts, 8ths, and then 21 of those 8ths will be shaded. Okay, so 21 8ths. So the question mark is 21 8ths. Okay, let's look at this one. 3/8 divided by 5. So 3/8 5. Oop. And I can't even write a division sign at this point. There we go. So we have 3/8 divided by 5 is our question mark. We don't know what that is. Well, it could also be 3/8 divided by the question mark equals 5. What do we divide 3/8 by to get 5? Or we can rewrite it as a product. So 5 times what equals 3/8? Or what times 5 equals 3/8? So based on the previous example, in order to find the question mark, we could use the missing factor and say, what do we need to multiply 5 by to get 3/8? Well, let's take a look. 5 times what is 3/8? If we can figure this out, then we can figure out the value of the question mark. Well, we know that 5 times 1/5 will give us 1/4, or will give us 1. Right? And what do we need to multiply 1 by to get to 3/8? Well, that's 3/8. So if we multiply by 1/5 and then by 3/8, then we would be able to get to 3/8. This is our 1, and then we're multiplying it by 3/8. So the question mark is actually 1/5 times 3/8. And we know how to figure that out. Well, our 1 is divided into 5ths and 8ths, so that would be 40ths. The 1 by 1 square, or a rectangle, would be divided into 40ths, and 3 of those would be shaded. So our question mark is actually 3/40ths. So if we're looking at this, then we can figure out a division expression by rewriting it as a missing factor, and the missing factor would be 1/5 times 3/8. Okay. Now I'm going to leave C for you to do, and D we can do together. So we have 6/25 divided by 4/5 and question mark equals question mark. So this is our the question that's asked. We could also rewrite it as 6/25 divided by what equals 4/5. If we find this question mark there, that'll be fine too. Or 4/5 times what equals 6/25, or what times 4/5 equals 6/25. So either one, any one of those multiplication statements can be used, but let's use this one where we have 4/5, and we need to multiply by something to get to 6/25. So 4/5 multiplied by something to get to 6/25. Right? That's our missing value, missing factor. So I know that I can get to 1 by multiplying by 5/4. This will get me to 1. But I want to be getting to 6/25. So if I multiply 1 by 6/25, then I have 6/25. So now, instead of 6 divided by 6/25 divided by 4/5, I can rewrite that same value as 5/4 times 6/25 equals, and I can simplify this, or I can use area model. So it'd be 100, 1 by 1 square, or a rectangle would be divided into hundreds, and then I will have 30 of them in my shaded in my area. All right. So when we are looking at a basic division, so for example, let's take an example such as 3/7 divided by 4/9. Okay. The way that the children will think about it, the ones that are looking at this as a missing factor, is that in order to find the missing factor, what do I need to multiply 4/9 by to get to 3/7? So 4/9 I need to multiply by 9/4 and then by 3/7. Right? So what do I need to get from 4/9 to 3/7? right? So I need to multiply that by 9/4 to get to 1, and then by 3/7 to get to 3/7. So that is the 1 by 1 rectangle is going to be divided into 28 pieces, and 27 of those are going to be shaded. All right. So now we're going to go back to our chapter 9 questions and see if we can make sense of the division of fractions there.